A very good afternoon, one and all. I, Dr. Sunaina Kuknoor, Faculty SIBM Pune, your host for today's event on Festival of Thinkers lecture series. In this series, Symbiosis International University invites renowned academicians, bureaucrats, and thought leaders to share their views and experiences with our students and staff and provides them with a platform to interact with stalwart personalities. One such personality is amidst us today, Mr. Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa India, who will enlighten the young minds present in the auditorium today on the topic Building India's Future, Role of Youth. I invite Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar ma'am, Pro-Chancellor Symbiosis International University and Principal Director, Symbiosis, to deliver the welcome address.
The chief guest for this year's Festival of Thinkers lecture series, Shri Amitabh Kant, Dr. Muzumdar, the Chancellor and founder of Symbiosis, Dr. Raman, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Rajiv, Provost of Faculty of Medical and Health Sciences, directors, faculty members, and my dear wonderful students that I can see in large numbers here in the auditorium. So first of all, let me thank you from the bottom of my heart for accepting our invitation and being here this afternoon. In fact, every time I have visited Delhi, and most of the times whenever I visit Delhi, I visited Shri Amitabh Kant's office only to get energized. A few sentences, a few words with him is enough of energy that I gain and bring it back to Pune. Thank you very much, sir, for all the advice that you've always given me. Shri Amitabh Kant is no guest at Symbiosis. In fact, we share a very personal relationship. His lovely sister is Mona, who's a very dear friend, and her husband, Shri Anami Roy, both of whom were closely associated with Symbiosis in setting up the Pune Police Public School. I don't need to introduce, nor does the compare need to introduce Shri Amitabh Kant. I think all of you know him, all of you have seen him on television, and most importantly, all of us know the amount of work which he did with dedication and commitment for the success of G20 when India was hosting the presidency of G20. Sir, in this audience, we also have some African students. Not all of them could come today because many of them are in their classes at other campuses, but they should be eternally thankful to you and, of course, our Prime Minister for including the African Union as the 21st partner of the G20. Though we know it is our Honorable Prime Minister who made this announcement, but I very well know that at the back end, the work that was done was of which came out from the bright mind of Shri Amitabh Kant. So the Festival of Thinkers lecture series is a lecture series that we hold every quarter. We get eminent people like you and many others, like Pankaj Khimji, like Shri Harsh Singla, the CEO of G20, who visited us, Shri Jai Shankar, Mr. Narayan Murthy, and several others who have come and addressed our students at this auditorium. It is to actually incite and inspire these young minds into thinking differently from what they learn in their classrooms. And I'm sure with your experience and expertise, you are certainly going to inspire them in the next couple of hours. In the morning at 8:30, Shri Amitabh Kantji addressed a group of Rotarians at the Hotel Sheraton. And I was fortunate enough to be invited for this roundtable discussion. And the kind of things that he mentioned were so important. But two things that struck me and what Symbiosis is contributing to is that he said, for a developed India, what you need is good health and good education. And sir, let me tell you that for the last 50 years, of course, through the efforts of our founder, Dr. Muzumdar, and my colleagues who are sitting here in the audience, education is something that we've been imparting, and not just education, but quality education. And thousands of students are passing out from the portals of this university, gaining good jobs in the corporate sector, many of them also working for the social sector. Same is the case with healthcare. In the last few years, we have been contributing to delivery of healthcare. through the hospital that we have established in 2019. So we run a 900-bedded free hospital which caters to not just the population of Pune city but the whole of Maharashtra. And I'm so happy to tell you that at any given point in time as we speak, more than 600 patients from poor families are admitted, undergoing different kinds of surgeries, different treatments, right from an appendix surgery to even a cardiac surgery, which is done free for them. So this is in a little way that we have contributed to education and healthcare, and we would like to learn more from you how Symbiosis can contribute to the development of this country. I won't take much time because we are here eagerly to listen to Sri Amitabh Kant and of course Dr. Muzumdar. But sir, once again, let me thank you from the bottom of my heart for accepting our invitation, and I hope that this is not your last visit, but the first one, your beginning of your association. In fact, once you told me that you are retiring from government, and I immediately wrote back to you saying that you should join us as a distinguished professor at Symbiosis. This invitation still remains in the presence of our Chancellor and Vice Chancellor, and I hope that you accept our invitation. Thank you.
I now invite Professor Dr. S.B. Muzumdar Sir, founder and president Symbiosis and Chancellor Symbiosis International University, to address the young minds in the auditorium with his words of wisdom.
Namaste to all of you. The invitation of today's function describes Amitabh Kant as chief guest of the function. I think it's wrong. He is not guest, but he is an advisor, mentor, inspirer to Symbiosis. And therefore I will first address him, the chief advisor of Symbiosis, chief mentor for this function, Amitabh Kant, Dr. Vidya, Dr. Raman, Dr. Rajiv, faculty and my dear students. Amitabh Kant is Sherpa, G20 Sherpa. What Sherpa means? Anybody?
Sir, it has its origin from the Nepali word. Sherpa is actually, it means that the one who guides in the mountain guide, who guides the crowd towards the leading top. That was it.
Its second meaning is a Sherpa is a diplomat who has been assigned a job of looking after an event which is going to take place in future, that is G20. Be that as it may, he is not a bureaucrat, although he is by duty. He is an academician, an author, but more than that, he is a wonderful orator. Orator par excellence. And whenever I attend his lectures or listen to him on YouTube, I myself get inspired. He is going to speak today to you. And he has selected a very apt subject, and that is what role youth can play in the future of India. It was Swami Vivekananda who predicted that whereas 20th century belonged to West, 21st century will belong to India. And when I think on his predictions, so many thoughts come to my mind. Which field, which sector will make 21st century India's century? And after prolonged thinking, at least I have come to the conclusion that it is education, education and education which will only make our country future, our country's 21st century will belong to India through education. And second, of course, as Vidya said, is health. But what type of education? And here I go to the main object of Symbiosis. It was established in 1971 to promote international understanding between foreign and Indian students. And since then, internationalism is the DNA of Symbiosis. The motto of Symbiosis is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. World is one family. But before Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, there is another word. Udara Charita Nam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Which means those who have broad mind, those who have generous mind, those who have noble minds can think of world as one family. Others who treat this is mine, this is yours, they have Laguchetanam, they have narrow minds. And precisely this university is pursuing that, making minds of students broad, minds of students nobler, through education. And therefore sometimes I thought that Vivekananda's prediction will come true, not only by imparting Western education, but Eastern wisdom and Western dynamism. And when these two things will amalgamate, I think the universities, our country, will produce global graduates, global citizens, who will treat the entire world as one family and who will consider global problems as his problems. And it is only then that Vivekananda's prediction is likely to come true through education, through Eastern education, Eastern wisdom and Western dynamism. I hope you will listen to him very carefully. I hope you will get inspiration from him, and a day will come when you will try to contribute to the future of our country. In fact, sometimes I feel that all those who are sitting here with tremendous energy of mind, you are the future of India. And it is for you to decide the future of India. It was Kothari who said that nations are shaped in classrooms, and more if the classrooms are good, if the classrooms are full of bright students, dedicated teachers, this dream of Swami Vivekananda is likely to come true. With these few words, I extend a very hearty welcome to Kantji and wish you all the best. God bless.
As a token of our gratitude, may I request Mazumdar sir to felicitate our guest for today, Shri Amitabh Kant ji, with a memento from Symbiosis. Let the applause keep going. Thank you. Thank you, sir. As we proceed with today's event, I have a question for the audience present here. What is the first name that comes to your mind when I say Kerala, God's own country, or Atithi Devo Bhava? Or if I say the author of books like The Elephant Moves, India's New Place in the World, Made in India, 75 years of business and enterprise, Incredible India 2.0. Anybody, any guesses? Louder? Yes, bang on. The one and only Shri Amitabh Kantji. And it is both an honor and privilege that he is here to interact with all of us. I mean, what more could we have asked for? A little more about Sir's journey. Presently, Sir is India's G20 Sherpa to Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, championing the nation's interest and leading an inclusive agenda. Sir is an Indian bureaucrat and the former Chief Executive Officer of Niti Aayog, a public policy think tank of Government of India. He is a retired member of the Indian Administrative Service, IAS. He first studied at Modern School, Delhi, graduated with a degree in economics from St. Stephen's College, Delhi, and earned a MA in International Relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University. He was a Chevening scholar. Sir began his IAS career in the Kerala cadre, working as a sub-collector of Thalassery. After his tenure there, Sir was appointed as the Chief Executive of the Kerala State Cooperative Federation for Fisheries Development Limited. Further, as a district collector of Kozhikode, then Calicut, he played a key role in the expansion of Calicut Airport. Further, in the role of Tourism Secretary and Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Sir pioneered various initiatives and campaigns such as Kerala, God's Own Country, Incredible India, and Atithi Devo Bhava, Guest is God, to name a few. Later, as the Secretary of the Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, Sir drove initiatives such as Make in India, Startup India, Ease of Doing Business in India. Sir was the CEO of Niti Aayog from 2016 to 2022. During his tenure, he pioneered production-linked incentive schemes, positioning India as a global manufacturing and export hub. He established India's national mission on transformative mobility and battery storage. Few of his honors and recognitions: recipient of the Order of Rising Sun, Gold and Silver Star, 2023, Government of Japan. Recipient of Sir Edmund Hillary Fellowship awarded by the Prime Minister of New Zealand. One Globe Award 2016 for leadership in transforming governance for the 21st century. Sir, you are an inspiration for all of us, and your contributions to our country, India, are truly incredible. I can go on and on with your achievements, but I will now stop and take this opportunity to invite you to address the eagerly awaiting audience, especially our students.
Dr. Mazumdar, the Chancellor of Symbiosis University, who's such a great institution builder and has created this very unique institution. And all of you are very fortunate to benefit from his vision to study in this wonderful campus here. Such a pleasure and an honor to be here in this university. Dr. Vedya, the Pro-Chancellor, whom I have known for over 2 decades and who's really
done a remarkable job of expanding this university further. The Vice Chancellor of the university, Dr. Raman, Dr. Rajiv, all the distinguished directors, the faculty members, and fellow, such a pleasure to be in the midst of such a young audience, the young and dynamic and energetic students of the management courses at the Symbiosis University. It's a great delight to be in the midst of all of you, and I was truly delighted that when Dr. Mazumdar started this university, he started with this motto of Vasudev Kutumbakam, that is, the world is one family, which was later borrowed by us for G20. And actually, that was the central theme of G20 last year, when India hosted the G20. Is of the Prime Minister's belief that you may have different political ideologies, you may have different geographical boundaries, but we all come from one cosmos, and that is, the end objective should always be of different countries and of different leaders to work for the benefit of the common citizen. And therefore, whatever may be the topic of today's lecture, let me dwell a little bit on my own experiences and try and see if we can relate those experiences to India and how all of you can play a critical and significant role in the growth and progress of India. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the G20 Sherpa, one of the key challenges for us was not merely that we host the G20 with great efficiency and professionalism, but the Prime Minister's objective was that it should not be held in one city, which is the capital of India, Delhi, but we should take it to all the states and union territories of India, which meant hosting over 100 venues, taking 250 meetings in over 100 different venues, and hosting them in partnership with the states and the union territories with the highest level of professionalism and also the highest level of integrity, so that these hosting the meetings in different states, we could bring in community participation, bring in the participation of the states, and ensure that we could promote the states, use this as an opportunity to improve infrastructure in the states, improve the drainage, the sewage, the road infrastructure of the different cities, but use this also as an opportunity to promote the local culture as well as the local handicrafts and the local art forms of these states. So, unlike any G20 held in the past, India hosted it in a large number of cities of India, over 100 cities, 250 meetings. But the challenge of G20 was really to bring consensus. It's a multilateral forum. And multilateral forums are like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, etc., where all the countries get represented. And the challenge there is that multilateralism works only when you are able to bring a consensus on all the issues. And the challenge was that we were in the post-COVID era. The Russia-Ukraine war was at its peak. 200 million people had lost their jobs, 100 million people had gone below the poverty line. The challenge was that there was big power conflict was at center stage. Never before after World War II we'd seen such a big power conflict in the heart of Europe. And the challenge to bring consensus on a range of issues, from bringing growth, strong sustainable growth to the world, accelerating the pace of sustainable development goals. Because of the impact of COVID, all these SDGs had been impacted. Bringing consensus on a Green Development Pact for climate action and climate finance, bringing consensus on multilateral reforms, and bringing consensus on digital public infrastructure so that we can use technology to leapfrog, and more important, bringing consensus on women-led development because of India's belief that if the world is to grow and expand, women have to lead the world. That was Prime Minister's philosophy. On all these issues, we had to bring consensus. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that it was like compressing 5 years in 1 year, and eventually India was able to bring consensus on all these key issues. On over 83 paras, close to 212 outcomes, we brought consensus. But one single issue, the Russia-Ukraine issue, on which we had to bring consensus between G7, between all the emerging countries, Russia and China, that one paragraph took us 300 hours of negotiation. It took us almost 350 bilateral meetings with different countries. It took us almost close failures on 16 draft. We failed on 16 draft. We failed on all the ministerial meetings throughout the year. And finally, at the Sherpa round, we were able to arrive at an agreement after 300 hours of negotiation, after failure of 16 draft. But we were able to bring consensus on an issue on which the United Nations has failed throughout. And we brought consensus with a lot of ability to demonstrate that India is the only country in the world which can bring consensus between G7, between emerging markets, between Russia, China. The second key achievement of India was that we were very clear from the beginning that our presidency will be inclusive, it will be decisive, it will be action-oriented, and it will be ambitious. And when we say inclusive, the Prime Minister was very clear that it can't be a G20 of only the rich countries of the world and some of the emerging countries, but we'll make it inclusive if we are able to include African Union as a member. Chancellor Mazumdar's vision in many ways was shaped by bringing the international students to Symbiosis. In the similar manner, our vision was that we are able to bring African Union as a member of G20. So what India succeeded was by convincing all the countries that we'll make G20 very, very inclusive by making African Union a member, and we succeeded in that effort. So India made G20 into G21. And by doing this, we have now got about G20 is covering about 90% of the global population. It covers almost 80% of the global trade. It covers almost 3/4 of the world's population simply because India was able to make it G21. And today, African Union will play a very critical and significant role in all the policy making of the world. That is what G20 does. Because if G20 decides on key issues, then all the implementing body, whether it's the World Bank, the IMF, the WHO, the WTO, the IMF, all implement those critical decisions which G20 takes. And therefore, India demonstrated its great ability to do G20 in a very professional manner, based on outcomes where we achieved consensus, by making it inclusive and by demonstrating to the world that India is the only country which could achieve success, even as far as the drafting on the Russia-Ukraine para is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you back to the time when I started my career, and I started my career in Kerala. And in many of us, as all of you in your life, will go through your ups and downs. And I did my district. I was a district collector in Calicut in Kerala, where Vasco da Gama had landed. And later, I ran into a problem with the state politicians, and actually I was without a posting for about 10 months. Those were days when I thought that was the end of my career. And after 10 months, I was given a punishment posting. And the punishment posting was as Secretary Tourism in Kerala, because that time nobody had heard of tourism in Kerala. And Kerala was not a tourism destination. Kerala was back and beyond, and nobody used to go to Kerala because everybody used to go either to Kashmir or to Rajasthan, or they would visit Lonavala here, but nobody would go to Kerala at that point of time. It was a punishment posting for me after 10 months of waiting, but because I had fought with a politician who had gone on to become the Chief Minister of the state. But then I used that opportunity as a punishment posting to transform the state in tourism. Kerala then had only one tourism product, which was the Kovalam beach, and which had become very dirty and filthy. But I used that as an opportunity to close Kovalam, and I opened up completely new products. We opened up the backwaters of Kerala. We opened up the houseboats of Kerala, on which not a single nail is used. We opened up, we went back to the roots of Kerala, and we said we'll differentiate Kerala from the rest of the world because there are 200 destinations competing in the international marketplace. And the challenge was that how do you differentiate Kerala? So we went back to the roots of Kerala. We went back to its traditional martial art, Kalripet, which is the mother of all martial art. We went back to its traditional art forms, Kathakali, Mohiniyattam, and we revived them as tourism. The traditional Kerala architecture, the Nalkittam houses are very beautiful with courtyard. All of them were being sold as firewood in the marketplace. We revived the traditional Kerala architecture and the traditional Kerala homes. We brought back center stage the traditional Kerala cuisine. Many of you would have now heard of appam and stew, which was unheard of at that time. We brought it all center stage. So what we said was that we'll differentiate Kerala by going back to its root, by bringing Ayurveda center stage. So backwaters, Ayurveda, houseboat, martial arts, Kerala's art forms, Kerala's cuisine became the center stage, and we built it up as Kerala, God's own country. And that's how we differentiated Kerala. That's how we differentiated Kerala, and we took Kerala from a $20 a night destination, which used to be Kovalam, to a $600 a night destination, and we increased the unit value realization of Kerala. And then, one fine day, on a Sunday, I was sleeping at home, and I got a call that the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister wants to talk to you, and I picked up the phone. It was Mr. Brajesh Mishra, who was Secretary to Mr. Vajpayee. And he said that, young man, you are the Secretary Tourism, and the Prime Minister wants to come to Kerala for a holiday. And you plan his trip, there will be no politician. We will not have any Chief Minister, no ministers around him. He will stay in Kovalam, he'll stay in Kerala for about 6 to 7 days. You plan his trip, and you will be the only person around him. So I planned Mr. Vajpayee's holiday, and I decided to host him in Kumaragam, in the backwaters of Kerala, in the midst of the most magnificent backwaters of Kerala. And for 7 days, Mr. Vajpayee actually stayed in Kumaragam. And every morning, evening, I used to be with him, with Mr. Brajesh Mishra, who was then the Principal Secretary. So one day, I'd taken him to the backwaters of Kerala and shown him the backwaters, and we came back. And then Mr. Brajesh Mishra said कि sir, इस लड़के ने बहुत काम किया tourism में. He's developed the backwaters, he's developed the houseboats. Houseboats, not a single nail is used. All the carpenters had gone away to the Gulf. We brought them back. These are rice boats which were used to transport rice, but we developed them as a tourism product. So Mr. Vajpayee was very fascinated with the houseboat story, and he said, Mr. Brajesh Mishra told him, sir, इस लड़के ने बहुत काम किया, बड़ा young लड़का है, इसको गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया में लाते हैं, इसको tourism के लिए. So Mr. Vajpayee then turned to me and said कि have you applied for government of India? आपने अप्लाई किया है भारत सरकार के लिए? तो I said नहीं सर, मैंने तो नहीं अप्लाई किया है. He said अच्छा है आपने नहीं अप्लाई किया, मत अप्लाई करना. अगर अप्लाई करोगे तो मिस्टर ब्रजेश मिश्रा आपको टूरिज्म के बदले विमेन एंड चाइल्ड वेलफेयर में भेज देंगे. So that was the end of the story. I applied 1 year, 2 months later. And 1 year, 2 months later, I was to go to Ministry of Finance But they picked me up and posted me in tourism. So Mr. Brijesh Mishra again called me up and said, have you applied for Government of India? I said, no. Yes, sir, I've applied. So he said, you know where you're going? I said, I'm going to the Ministry of Finance. He said, no. You recall that discussion we had when Mr. Vajpayee was in Kumaragam? We are posting you to tourism. So I said, sir, but there's no vacancy there. So he said that is none of your business. That's for me to create a vacancy. So they shifted the existing officer, put him into labor and posted me there. Now, as soon as I landed in tourism, within 1 month of that, the New York Twin Tower blast happened. There was a war in Afghanistan. There was you recall that attack on our Parliament House. And, there were travel advisories against India. And tourism came down to just 10% of what it was. And, there was huge travel advisories against a visit to India because of this war in Afghanistan. And number of incidents happened one after another. And then we used to go to tour operators and say that, please send tourists. And they said that there's no consumer interest in India. So at that peak of that crisis, when Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, all had stopped their tourism campaigns because travel had slowed down all over the world because of the New York travel blast. At the peak of that crisis, we launched the Incredible India campaign. And again, we use that opportunity to go back to India's roots, to Ayurveda, to yoga, to meditation, and to bring back tourism to our heritage sites. And that's how we brought tourism back to India. And Incredible India drove consumer demand to India. And tourism really grew and expanded, and that led to the development of new airlines in India, development of new airports, what you see in Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. It was a consumer-driven approach which drove marketing, which brought consumer back in India and really drove the creation of great infrastructure in India. That was the story of Incredible India. And then, I became the CEO of Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, and my job was to really, build this do some new manufacturing. What we've done in Shindra, Bidkin, or what we've done in Dholera is planning for new urbanization, completely new urbanization in India, create new cities which are walk to work, which have great experiences. So a lot of that urbanization is critical for India. And then soon after, I was made Secretary Industries, the Government of India. And the government changed in India, and Prime Minister Modi came, and the first presentation as secretary I was made to do to him, and he said, in this presentation, at one point of time, I told him that India was 144th in the ease of doing business. So he said this should be your number one priority. And that's how we started working on ease of doing business. We scrapped a number of rules, regulations, procedures, paperwork, acts. We've scrapped 1,600 laws in this country as a consequence of this. And actually officers are very, very, very hesitant to do away with paperwork. So we had to literally force them to digitize so that every citizen that gets in touch with government gets in touch only digitally and not through paperwork. To simplify forms into one pages, to do away with all clearances, scrap rules, scrap procedures. For 2 years, I did nothing but just scrap rules, procedures, and so that India could be made very easy and simple. And as a consequence of this, India jumped up about 80 positions in the World Bank ease of doing business. No country had done that. But one of the things we started doing was to rank Indian states, because India is such a large country, it's bigger than 25 countries of Europe. So the first year we did the ranking of the states, Gujarat came number 1. The next year, Andhra beat Gujarat, and the third year, Telangana beat both Andhra and Gujarat. But the good thing was that Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, which were 24th and 25th, they carried out major reforms and they came 4th and 5th. And therefore, what it shows is that if you are able to build competition among not merely states, but amongst a number of entities to compete and do outcomes and use data and use good governance and compete and put data in public domain, you can really transform. And these states really started transforming as a consequence of this huge competitive pressure, because we were putting data before the common citizens. We were putting ranking in public domain. And then, we did the Make in India campaign because manufacturing was very important. And we launched the Startup India campaign at that time. When we launched it, there were only 156 startups in India. Today we have 140,000 startups, 140,000 startups. We have over about 140 unicorns, and that demonstrates the young, tremendous energy, vibrancy, and dynamism of India, which has enabled us to do this startup movement. And then, one fine day, I got a call from the Prime Minister saying that, the demonetization had happened, and he said, you drive digitization in India, digital payments. And nobody had heard of digital payments at that time. So our task was to promote, and he said, you do 100 digital melas in 100 days. So we made a presentation to him, and I said, sir, give us more time. 4 times during the course of the presentation, I said, sir, give us 1 week a day. 1 week we'll do 1 mela. He said, nahin, kuch nahi karna, 100 din mein 100 mele karo. In 100 different cities. So in 100 different cities, we got RBI, we got all the banks, we got all the private players, we got everybody together for 100 digital melas in 100 days. And that's what led to the digital payment, fast payments in India. We taught everybody how to do fast payments on mobile phones. And as a consequence of that, what happened then, today we do 130 billion fast payments in a year. We do 46% of the real-time fast payments on mobile. I think all of you must be doing mobile fast payments because all of you have Aadhaar. All of you have Aadhaar, and between 2015 and 2017, India opened up 550 million bank accounts. 550 million bank accounts means that every second bank account was opened in India. And, 55% of the bank accounts opened in the world were opened in India. Then through our drive, we linked up Aadhaar and the mobile number with these bank accounts, which enabled all of us to do digital fast payments. But as a consequence of that, digital fast payments, today you have a number of young startups. You look at MobiKwik, Pine Lab, all of them. You're able to see your payment history and do credits. They are able to give credit to people who have the capacity to repay, not looking at paperwork, but at your credit history through your payments. And then you had a number of young startups. You look at Zerodha, you look at Upstart, you look at Grow, all of them took stock market to tier 2, tier 3 cities. They are all young boys like you who took it to tier 2, tier 3 cities and rural area. And they control 30% of India's stock market. And that's why wealth creation moved to rural areas, tier 2, tier 3 cities. And then you had another set of young startups like Go Digit, Acco, all young entrepreneurs. What did Go Digit and Acco do? When I was a young officer, taking a life insurance policy used to take me 6 months, 9 months, 8 months. Creating a digital identity for fishermen used to take me 9 months. Go Digit and Acco give you insurance policy in 1 minute. So what has happened in India is we move from identity to bank accounts. From bank accounts, we have moved to doing fast payments. From fast payments, we move to credit. From credit, we move to stock market creation, wealth creation. From there, we move to insurance. And all this has happened within the period of the last 4 to 5 years, that you can do this in 30 seconds to 1 minute. Nowhere in the world does this happen, that you are able to do transactions in 30 seconds to 1 minute on the go, on the mobile. And all this has happened because of the young, energetic, vibrant, dynamic spirit of all these are young startups who've transformed them. Now, young startups means they're national assets for the country who've transformed them. And that is the story, the real story of India. Is the story of young India, because India is very young. The average age of India is just 29. Even when we become 100 in 2047, the average age will just be 35. And rarely has a country not created wealth when there are low dependency burdens. So the demographics are very young. The rest of the Europe, America, Japan, all have aged. China is aging much faster. India is young, very young. And therefore, it's very, very challenging that India really drives uses demographics to transform India very sharply. And then, I was later the CEO of Niti Aayog for about close to 6 years, 10 months. And one of the key things that happened during that period was that challenge was to transform lives of citizens. So the Prime Minister asked me to work on some of these the most backward districts of India. The backward districts of India, many of these names, you may not even have heard of these districts. How many of you have heard of a district called Kifre in Nagaland? None of you. So Kifre is a district in Nagaland. It's a backward district. How many of you have heard of a district called Riboi in Meghalaya? None of you have heard it. Riboi is a backward district in Meghalaya. There is how many of you heard of a district called Lohardaga in Jharkhand? One person. Lohardaga is a district in Jharkhand. How many of you heard of a district called Mahasmand in Chhattisgarh? Mahasmand. So these are backward districts of India. These are some of the most backward districts of India, but they are also some of the populous districts of India. Now the challenge for India is that Pune may grow, Mumbai may grow, Delhi may grow, urban cities may grow, but how do you transform the lives of citizens of India? The backward people, and in these 15 of the most backward districts of India, 20% of your population lives. So we developed this aspirational district program, and the aspirational district program was that and this is born out of our belief that actually India will transform if you can transform education, if you can transform health, if you can transform nutrition. So in all these key areas of education, health, nutrition, we had clearly defined outcomes. And these outcomes, we worked on these outcomes. We started getting data from each block, each district, and we started putting out the rankings on the performance of these districts on a monthly basis. So every month we'd say what is number 1, what is number 2, what is number 114 or 115. Everyone knew which is performing, which is not performing on outcomes. And therefore, what happened as a consequence was that competitive pressure built up and every collector started improving. Every collector started working hard to improve outcomes. And then, because we were doing it on a real-time basis, that you can get data on the mobile, feed it, put it on the computer, everybody knows who's performed, get a third party to cross-verify, put the ranking, the MLA should know, the MP should know, the district collector should know, all the officers should know. And all the officers means all the officers were competing, the collectors were competing, the MLAs were competing, the MPs were competing. And if you're coming number 1, it's a pride, but if you're coming number 115 or 114, it's a shame. So one of these collectors from Chhattisgarh actually left his district and came to me and he said, "Sir, I'm coming third. And the challenge for me is that 8 days are left and I want to come number 1. Then I opened the computer in front of him and I saw that by the time he'd left his district of Bastar and come to Delhi, he had moved from the 3rd position to the 6th position. In 3 days' time, there was such intense competition between collectors that he moved from 3rd to the 6th position. So I said, "Now you're coming 6th. So he said, "Sir, then I'll have to really work hard. I don't think it'll be possible." By the time he went back and he worked hard, he could only improve 2 positions. He came 4th eventually. But there was so much of pressure on aspirational district. What it shows now is that, when I was a young officer, data was not available. Data was coming 5 years, 6 years later after I'd left my district as district collector. So the hard work I'd done, I didn't even know how my district was performing. The transformation that has happened today is that data you get on a real-time basis, you get it on the mobile, you feed it in the computer, you do your analysis, you put it out in public domain, you put it all over the world and say this one is coming number 1, this one is coming last. And that competition puts such intense pressure that you can transform lives of citizens. And that is what taught me that actually today's world is a world of data. It's about good governance, it's about data analysis, it's about machine learning. It's our ability to put pressure to improve good governance. And therefore, Niti Aayog really taught me the art of using data. And all of you, when you get into whatever area you're getting into, use the power of good governance, use the power of data, use the power of analysis, use the power of competition to transform things. And exactly that's what we've done in production-linked incentive to drive Indian manufacturing so that we can go up. we can improve our manufacturing in many ways. And that is how we've been able to get Apple to do almost 25% of its manufacturing in India, Samsung to do almost 40% of its manufacturing in India. But ladies and gentlemen, let me say that, India is passing through a phase at a point of time when there is conflict in Europe. Russia-Ukraine war is at the center of Europe. You're seeing Middle East crisis going on. There's a huge humanitarian crisis. You're seeing almost 100,000 people die in Middle East in 11 months, as compared to just 11,000 people dying in Ukraine war over 3 years. So the crisis in Middle East, there's a huge crisis in Europe. At the peak of all these crises across the world, India has demonstrated that it can grow. In the last 3 quarters, we've grown at about 8.2%. And the challenge for India is really to accelerate the pace of this growth to 9 to 10% per annum, year after year for next 3 decades or more, if India has to be a developed country by 2047. The challenge is that by next few years, and by 2027, today we are the 5th largest economy in the world. By 2027, we'll become the 3rd largest economy in the world, overtaking Japan and Germany. The 3rd largest economy in the world. But the challenge for India is to keep growing at a high rate of 9 to 10% over the 3-decade period, to be able to improve the per capita income so that we can transform the lives of citizens. And this would require us to do many things. We've carried out huge structural reforms. We've carried out the goods and services tax, which, as a consequence of which, we have one tax across the economy. We've carried out the insolvency bankruptcy code. We've brought in ease of doing business. We have reduced the corporate tax. We've brought in the Real Estate Regulation Act. These are very major structural reforms which are pending in this country for the last 4 decades. We've done huge digitization. Some of the story that I've told you, what the Bank of Indian International Settlement has said, that what India has achieved in digitization in 7 years would have taken India 50 years to achieve. 50 years story we could do in 7 years, and now we are taking this model of digital public infrastructure, which is open source, open API, globally interoperable to the rest of the world. Because what has happened in the world is that in the last 2 decades, all technological advancement in the world, in the western part of the world, has happened because of Meta, it's happened because of Amazon, it's happened because of Apple, it's happened because of all these big tech companies in the United States. And in China, this transformation has happened because of Tencent and Alibaba. But all your data, all the citizens' data is being taken by these companies, and they're using it for AI and machine learning. As many of you who use Facebook would have realized that when they use your data, they are able to get you the right consumer products. In the case of India, India did something very different. It created a public interest layer, which is, the public interest layer was the Aadhaar, on top of which we've allowed private sector to compete. And we created an open source and open API model, which is globally interoperable. So the private sector competes with each other. It brings in the innovative spirit. And we said that the citizens' data under the digital empowerment protection architecture will be controlled by the citizen. So in India, the data is owned by the citizens, your data, and you'd give a techno-economic clearance for the use of that data. And this, to my mind, will be the future model for the world to follow. And therefore, what India has created is something unique. The world will follow this model. And in G20, the concept of digital public infrastructure was accepted. The model of digital public infrastructure was accepted for all the world. So if you have to transform Africa, if you have to transform Latin America, now we've got bank accounts, we do fast payments, but 4 trillion people do not even have a bank account. Close to about 4 billion people do not have a bank account. 2 billion people do not do fast payments. 133 countries do not have a digital identity system. And therefore, the future will be the digital public infrastructure model which India has built up. So ladies and gentlemen, The challenge for India is to grow rapidly at high rates using technology to leapfrog in the coming years. And we will, in the coming years, the challenge will be to accelerate the pace of this digital transformation. And thirdly, to my mind, what India has done is to build up a huge amount of infrastructure. We've built in the last 8 years, we built 40 million houses. 40 million houses is like making one full Australia in India. You know, the population of Australia is 32 million. We've built 40 million houses for our people. We've provided over 120 million toilets for our citizens, which is like providing a toilet to every single citizen of Germany. And we've provided 253 million piped water connection, which is like providing a piped water connection to every single citizen of Brazil. That's the size and scale of what India has done. But we've also built 88,000 kilometers of roads, expressways, highways, and no other country has been able to do so much of infrastructure creation within such a short period. And we've taken our capex spend as a percentage of GDP from 1% to 4%, which will grow further in the new budget. So this India story is also a story of great infrastructure creation. And the last bit is this great story of green transformation, which all of you will be confronted by this challenge of climate action, climate finance. But what India has demonstrated it, while we've not consumed the space in the world, the greenhouse gas emission we've not done. That's the developed world has done it. But irrespective of that, India must become the first country in the world to industrialize and urbanize without carbonizing the world. And therefore, we've now taken this challenge to actually push for cleaner climate, and we've done 200 gigawatt of renewable energy. 200 gigawatt of renewable energy means that we are the only country amongst the G20 countries to achieve what it had committed to in Paris at COP21 in Paris. We've brought down the price of renewable energy. We were able to provide 130 million women LPG gas connection in rural areas so that we could improve the livelihood of our women because they were all using firewood to cook at home, which has now been replaced by LPG. So imagine the impact of firewood on their health, on their eyes, on future generations for nutrition. We've transformed all that by providing LPG gas connections to them so that they can have a better livelihood. We've procured over 400 million LED bulbs so that we can ensure better, cleaner climate for our citizens. And now we are providing electric buses, 10,000 electric buses to our cities so that we are able to use the power of India, the size and scale of India to bring down the cost. So ladies and gentlemen, what India has done is bring in structural reforms. It has built infrastructure in the last few years. It has brought in huge amount of digitization, and it has gone green. That is one of its huge efforts has been that to grow with sustainability has been one of its clean attempts. But we have many, many challenges, and the challenges are enormous. And as we grow and expand, our challenges will be that we grow in the future by doing sustainable urbanization, because India will see 500 million people getting into the process of urbanization. 500 million means that we'll have to build 2 Americas in 5 decades, 2 Americas. We need to do this in a sustainable manner, not in an unplanned, unsustainable manner. The challenge will be of water. The challenge will be of enhancing agriculture productivity. Very vast segment of our population is dependent on agriculture, 46%. And we need to take them and put them into manufacturing and urbanization. So the challenge will be to enhance agriculture productivity. And the challenge will be, to my mind, ensure that we are able to improve our learning outcomes, which to my mind is the biggest challenge. Improve learning outcomes by ensuring that children are able to understand what they are studying in class 2. One of the big challenges is that we are getting children to move from class 2 to class 3, class 4, class 5, class 6, class 10. But a class 10 student is not able to comprehend what he has been taught in class 2. Even in his mother tongue, he is not able to understand what he was taught in class 2, but he is moved into class 10. So what several studies, ASA studies, NAS studies, Pratham studies, what they show is that the learning outcomes in India are poor. The health outcomes are poor. The nutritional standards are poor. Our mothers are weak. And a weak mother is giving birth to a weak child, which is leading to wasting and stunting and huge anemia in India. And therefore, these are important issues for a new India. For a developed India, improving learning outcomes, health outcomes, improving nutritional standards are all very important. These are critical issues for India. And without this, it will be very difficult to sustain our growth over the next 3-decade period. And the last point I want to make is that for India to grow at high rates for the next 3-4 decades, we need states as champions. So we need to create large companies. We have very few large companies. We need 10,000 large companies, but we also need 10 to 12 champion states. And therefore, it's very important that while all of you study in Pune, it's very important that UP, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, these states grow at rapid states. You know, if UP was to be a country, it will be the 6th most populous country in the world. And therefore, these states are very important. And many of you will go and work in many of these states. These states need to grow at high rates of 9 to 10% per annum for many decades. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a great believer that this is not only India's decade, this is India's century. And India's century is a great opportunity to both look at our positives and look at our challenges and confront these challenges in a manner by which we can make India grow at high rates of 9 to 10%. But all this can only happen when the young people of India, all of you assembled in this India, play a key role in transforming India. You are really the future. No country, as I said, has been able to transform itself without the youth. And young India is very important because, as I said, the demographics are in India's favor. The average age of India is very young. And if young India drives India's growth story, it'll be a transformational story. It'll truly be India's century. And for that to happen, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important, first and foremost to my mind, from my own experiences, is that you must have belief in India. Your belief, you must always be an optimist on India. Never be a pessimist. There will be challenges. There will be many stories that this is what is wrong with India, that this is going wrong. If you keep watching television, you'll only hear stories that this is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong every day. But always be an optimist. Always have belief and always work on outcomes. Never work that you have finished the physical allocation. Never believe that you have finished the financial allocations. Believe in whether you have achieved outcomes or not. So, ladies and gentlemen, always have outcomes. Define your outcomes. Work towards those outcomes and have the belief that you will achieve those outcomes. Secondly, be always courageous. My belief always has been that even when chips are down, even when I was without a posting for 10 months, I never lost the appetite to take risks. Always take risks, be courageous, don't be ever a status quoist. You are here to transform India, you are here to transform the world. God has given you birth at a time and your parents have given you an education at Symbiosis so that you can be a change agent. And you'll never get this opportunity to be mentored by people like Mr. Mazumdar and Dr. Vidya and Dr. Raman. You'll never get this opportunity again. And very few students in India get this opportunity. You are amongst the very fortunate people to study in Symbiosis. You are amongst the very fortunate people to have assembled in this hall. You are very few people to have, amongst the rarest of the rare, not even 0.1% people get this opportunity to be mentored by Dr. Mazumdar, which you've got. And therefore, you must be the biggest risk taker, the biggest change agent of India. And for that to succeed while taking risk, the biggest thing is be relentlessly prepared. You will never achieve success if you are not prepared. Whatever I've done in my life, I've done 100 times before. If I haven't done 100 times before, keep studying, keep reading, keep preparing, you will never achieve success. Leave nothing to chance. Leave nothing to chance. And therefore, this requires relentless preparation. No politician, no administrator, no bureaucrat, no doctor has ever succeeded in the world. No engineer has ever succeeded in the world without relentless preparation. And the opportunity for you is that hard work is a must. Relentless preparation and slogging it out is a must. And only if you slog it out, leave nothing to chance. Don't believe in your fortune. Believe in hard work and be relentless preparation. You must know that there is nothing more than hard work. And therefore, I've been a great believer that relentless preparation and hard work is key to your success. And always surround yourself, always as you grow in age, much like Dr. Mazumdar surrounds himself with young people, surround yourself with young people who are always younger in age. Don't surround yourself with pessimists. Don't surround yourself with old people who feel that this is not possible, that is not possible. Always surround yourself with the young energy of India as you grow and advance in age. Because the young people, my experience of Niti Aayog is I introduced the scheme of young professionals. And the young professionals actually gave me greater wisdom, they gave me greater insight into how to transform India than any of the people who put in 30 to 40 years of service in government. All the guys who had put in 30, 40 years of service in government said, sir, this is not possible. That is not possible. But it was the young people who made me transform the aspirational districts of India. Many of them did phenomenal work in energy transition, in climate action, etc. So I've always believed in surrounding myself with young people, and they are far more effective. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, always use technology. Always use technology to leapfrog, because that is the only way India will grow rapidly. Never be hostile to technology. If India has grown rapidly in the last few years, it's because we've opened up space. We've opened up drones. We've opened up geospatial sector. We've opened up manufacturing in many of these areas, and the Prime Minister himself is a great believer in technology. We've pushed for digital transformation. We've used the power of technology to leap for. And that is why in digital public infrastructure, we are way ahead of most of the advanced countries of the world. And if we have to be more advanced than anyone else in the world, we'll have to be ahead of them in artificial intelligence, in quantum computing, in value addition, in pharma sector, in many of these new areas of growth which are emerging, whether it's electric vehicle, whether it's green hydrogen, using renewable energy to crack water and green hydrogen. And therefore, in all the emerging areas of growth, India will have to be way ahead of other countries. But always be an optimist, always do hard work, be a relentless preparer of whatever you do, and always challenge the status quo and be a change agent. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
To conclude today's event, I invite Dr. R. Raman, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis International University, to present the vote of thanks.
As I stand between you and your lunch, let me make the vote of thanks very short. Dr. Majumdar sir, who is the Chancellor, Dr. Vidya, Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Rajiv, the Provost. Most importantly, our chief guest for the day, the speaker, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Sir, I am convinced you will have to go and take the distinguished professor role at Symbiosis International University. It's a request on the behalf of all students, faculty members. What an enthralling speech was that. It was like I was sitting in a class and it was completely, all students were engrossed here. All the points that you gave, be it started with the G20, the tag that you had of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and the sync with the theme of Symbiosis, hosting G20 meets across the cities, which was never held in the past, or the 300 hours and the 16 drafts and how to ensure that you bring in consensus. We also hosted about 46 vice chancellors on this very same campus while the G20 summit was happening to see how we can ensure mobility of students can happen. We have a Symbiosis Institute of Design where there were several artisans from different states who showed their handicrafts here. Now, I also look at you as a role model to show how you can create opportunities from the challenges that you are posed in. A posting which was a punishment, but that ensured the God's own country had a great chance for it to showcase. I would say India is lucky to have someone like you at the helm of affairs who creates opportunities out of any challenge that is posted in front of you. Your journey to the central government and then how the immediate challenges were there and how you created the incredible India, your contributions of doing business ranking, moving from 144 to 80. I think there is a management lesson there of build competition and make excellence a habit, then things will fall in place. That's the lesson that I take. And also about growth of startups from 150 to 140,000 startups with the Startup India. Fantastic with 100 different digital mailers and the digitization. Just for information, we have our own startup lab that we have, that is the incubation center. And one of the incubator is one of the top 5 payment gateways in India. It's called EaseBuzz. It's our own startup, which is the Symbiosis startup, which has also contributed to that aspect. Your role of CEO of Niti Aayog and how you focused on the different backward districts, challenges that India has, increasing the capital per capita income, how India shows the way for digitization. The data points were fabulous when it comes to infrastructure creation in the past 8 years. The green initiatives, and you closed with the challenges ahead, which were the critical issues: urbanization, water, productivity, learning outcome improvement, health and nutritional improvement, and the need for champion states and large companies. You closed very well telling, have belief in India, be an optimist, and be relentless and work hard. Always use technology ethically. I think that summarizes what you spoke in possibly 2 minutes. Thank you so much. We would want this to be the first of a series of lectures from you for the Symbiosis students here. Thank you so much, sir.